Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we are making some make ahead breakfasts. So these breakfasts are going to be make ahead, heat and serve, or they are going to be prep, bake and serve, or they are going to be freezable. They're all very versatile, and so you'll be able to use them however you need them or however fits your mornings best. So first we're going to prep our baked oatmeal, and this baked oatmeal is so good, but we're going to do this first because we're going to let it sit for a little bit. Now this baked oatmeal also, it can sit overnight and you can bake it in the morning, which makes it a super easy way to kind of just have everything ready, throw it in the oven and serve it when you're ready. Or you can bake it and then freeze it, or you can bake it, cut it into servings, and then warm it up the next morning or whenever you're ready and serve it. So let's come down here. I'm going to show you this oatmeal because this was my favorite way to eat regular oatmeal when I was younger. So this is a maple and brown sugar baked oatmeal. And I remember when I was young getting that maple brown sugar packet and adding some butter to it, and it was so good. So this is my version of a maple and brown sugar oatmeal in a baked casserole version. So come down here and I'll show you how we make it. So this breakfast is so easy. I typically just mix it in my actual casserole pan instead of dirtying a mixing bowl first, which makes it super easy. So typically this recipe is an 8x8 square dish. I just wanted to use this dish today because it's so pretty. So we're gonna start by melting some butter. And this calls for 1 stick of butter. So let me I'm gonna melt one of these butters. And I'm just gonna chop it up a little bit. There we go. All right, let me throw this in the microwave to melt it. All right, so in this pan, I might need to go get some more brown sugar. So I will go ahead and fill my brown sugar after this. I buy my brown sugar from Sam's. That's why it's in a big bag. And you can see it has this like zipper open so you can reseal it. And my husband decided to cut the corner instead. So that's cute. So in here I put 3/4 cup packed brown sugar. And now we are going to add, hold on, let me grab the microwave. Now we are going to add our baking powder. Here we go. Our baking powder here. And I got these little teaspoons or measuring spoons off of Amazon, and they're magnetic. And these are perfect. I love them, and they go all the way to 1/8 of a teaspoon up to a tablespoon. And I love these. I will link them down below. I think you can get them in different colors too. I just got the rainbow one. But I love that they stay all together and you're not like trying to get in a drawer to find the right one because they fit together perfectly. So we are doing 1 tablespoon of baking powder. We are also going to do a teaspoon of cinnamon, and I get this Ceylon cinnamon powder from Azure. It's supposed to have more benefits to it than just regular cinnamon. So let me get my teaspoon out. More or less, depending on your preference. I did a little bit of a heaping teaspoon. Just kind of mix that baking powder in a little bit so it can evenly distribute through the whole thing. There we go. Now we are going to do 2 eggs. So I know some baked oatmeal recipes are very I guess mushy is the word, and that's not my favorite. I like a little bit of a drier baked oatmeal. I don't like it to be gooey, like super gooey inside. So that's why I like this recipe, because it doesn't use too many eggs. Now you could add more eggs to give it more protein if you wanted. All right, next, I should have gotten this out, but one of my favorite ingredients to use in breakfast stuff is maple extract. Maple extract. I love it, and a little goes a long, long way. Oh my gosh, it smells so good. So we're gonna do 1 teaspoon of maple extract. There we go. We are going to add 1 1/4 cup of milk. That's a half. 1, and then another half here. I'm just gonna give this a little bit of a mix to kind of make sure that brown sugar doesn't ball up down there. Get the eggs all mixed in. And now we are going to add our oats. So this is for, or this recipe calls for 3 cups of quick oats, but I use my old-fashioned oats all the time with no problems. It really depends on the texture you prefer on which oats you use. So we're gonna do 3 cups. 1, 2, 3. I actually buy my oats from Azure as well in 25-pound bags. Because I loved making this baked oatmeal. So now let's start stirring this a little bit, and we're going to start adding that butter, or just add the butter in. And we're just gonna mix this really well. All right, so now that this is mixed, we are gonna let it sit while we make some other things. After you make this, you can cover it and put it in the refrigerator overnight, and then bake it in the morning. I just like to let it sit so the oats can soak up a little bit of that moisture before I bake it, and it helps the texture out a lot. So we're just gonna let this sit. I'd say you could let it sit as little as 30 minutes to overnight. So we're gonna set this aside and move on to our next breakfast, and we'll bake this in a little bit. Next, this one is my son's absolute favorite. Now, my son is a picky eater. He hates eating breakfast. I mean, he will eat donuts if I gave him donuts, but I don't want to give him donuts every morning. So this is kind of made for my son. Now, it does have sugar in it, but so do a lot of breakfast foods, and I'd rather him eat something and then nothing at all. So we are going to be making Mocha breakfast muffins, and let me tell you, they are to die for. They are so, so good. So this recipe is going to make 10 to 12 muffins. It really depends on how full you fill your cups. But we're gonna start with a stick of butter. I just cut up another stick of butter and we're gonna melt it. All right, and now we are gonna mix our dry ingredients. So we're gonna mix 1 1/4 of a cup of flour. I don't know why I grabbed my whisk. So, 1 cup. And then let me grab my 1/4 of a cup without this falling. And a 1/4 of a cup. All right, next is one of those ingredients that I really like to use in this because it's a breakfast food and my son will eat it. So we are going to add 1/2 cup of chocolate protein powder. Now, if you do not want to use protein powder in this, you're going to use 1.5 cups of flour and just take out that protein powder. So this 1/2 cup of chocolate protein powder is roughly 60 grams of protein, which is why I really like using it. And I just use a whey protein. Our butter has melted, so we're just gonna let it sit because you want this to cool a bit before we use it. Next, we are going to add 1/2 cup of unsweetened cocoa powder. Now I buy my cocoa powder from Azure. It is a fair trade cocoa powder and it is so good. I love this cocoa powder. It actually sits by our coffee or espresso machine because I use it in my coffee every morning. All right, so next we're gonna get our baking powder and baking soda. Our baking powder, we are doing a powder, 1 teaspoon of baking powder. I'm gonna use the other side because the one side is wet. So 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and then we're going to do 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda. So I'll link that down below because I love these things. I need to show you what this is too and how this works because I love it. So 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda. And then we're going to do 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then we're just going to kind of mix this together to make sure that baking soda and baking powder is mixed in evenly because you don't want any clumps of that in your muffins. All right, that looks good. This does call for buttermilk. Now, don't be scared of buttermilk. I never, ever, ever carry buttermilk in my house. So this calls for 1 cup of buttermilk. So to replace the buttermilk in here, we're gonna make our own buttermilk, which is so easy. We're gonna take 1 cup of milk and 1 tablespoon of lemon, and then we're gonna let it sit for a couple minutes and it will turn into buttermilk. It'll do the same thing buttermilk does in a recipe. So 1 cup is actually marked on your jars. So 1 cup of milk and 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. I get my lemon juice from Azure. It is so good. If I can get it open, I have to go grab a new one. So we'll use this side. So 1 tablespoon, mix it up. We're gonna let that set for a minute while we mix up the rest of our wet ingredients. And don't worry, this won't give your muffins a lemony taste. All right, I hope this bowl is big enough. So now we're going to do the wet ingredients. So I'm gonna do 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla. I'm actually not even gonna measure that because it's vanilla. You can't go wrong. This is the vanilla I made myself. We're gonna do 2 eggs at room temperature. Make sure your eggs are room temperature. So I want to show you these and tell you why I'm going to be using more than 2 eggs. These are our bantam eggs and they are so tiny and cute, but compared to a normal chicken egg like this. So I'm going to use 4 of these, but the recipe is for 2 eggs. I'm just using 4 of the bantam eggs. So you want your eggs to be beaten. That's why we're going to beat these eggs before adding anything else, because if you don't break these yolks and mix them up, the egg has a hard time mixing evenly throughout the mix. So we just want to get this beaten up pretty well. That looks good. All right, so now we need 3 tablespoons or a shot of espresso. If you don't have an espresso machine, it's fine. All you need to do is replace it with like 3 tablespoons of really strong brewed coffee, or you can use instant. So I'm gonna go pull a shot real quick so it can cool before I add it to our egg mixture. So here's my shot of that I pulled of espresso. I'm gonna let this sit to the side while we finish mixing this up so it can cool a bit, because you don't want to add that hot of a liquid to your eggs. So let's set it over here. Now we're going to add 3/4 cup of sugar to this, and that's why I call these Mocha breakfast muffins, because they have that coffee flavor in them and it is so delicious. So this is 1/4 cup measuring, so we're going to do 3 of these. This is what I use for the cocoa powder and stuff, so no worries. So 3/4 cup. So now we're gonna mix this up, and we're gonna go ahead and add our buttermilk. So now that we've let this sit for a couple minutes, you can see that this has turned into a thicker consistency, which is the consistency of buttermilk, and this will work perfectly. So we're gonna add this to our bowl here. And then we are going to add our espresso. It's still warm, so I'm gonna make sure and just stream it in. Oop. And I actually probably had more than 3 tablespoons in there, but that's okay. And then our stick of butter, we are also gonna stream in here. And that had cooled pretty well. Set this to the side. Wipe up a bit. And now we're gonna add this mixture to our dry ingredients. So, what's important to know about this is you do not want to overmix it. It's very important that you don't overmix it. I'm gonna check the bottom of this with a spoon because, oh yeah, see, this bowl is shaped differently. So I was worried about it sitting in those crevices down there. So we'll probably have to check it again after we're done mixing. So I'm going to add our wet ingredients to this. That smells so good. And it's important not to overmix it. Let's just add it in. Let's just go for it. Got a little sugar in the bottom of this bowl, but it'll be fine. All right. So we're just gonna mix this until it's combined. We're gonna check our corners here because, yeah, I won't use this particular bowl again to do that, because that just, those corners hold that dry. So hopefully we can get it all out and mixed in well. So I know I said not to overmix, but you want to make sure everything's at least combined. And it's okay if you still see a little bit of dry. All right, that's good. I'm gonna stop there. I could just go with it, but now we're gonna add our chocolate chips. So this recipe calls for 3/4 of a cup of chocolate chips. I actually reserve 1/4 of a cup to put on top. So these are chocolate chips I got from Azure. They're fair trade and they are so delicious. So I'm gonna add 1/2 cup of chocolate chips in here. Maybe a few more for good measure. And then we'll just leave some reserved to put on the top. Because this is already pretty chocolatey. But if my son sees chocolate chips, he will definitely eat it. So we're gonna mix until they're in there well. Combine. Again, we don't want to overmix. And I think that looks good. So I already preheated my oven to 425. I bought this little muffin tin because I do live in a fifth wheel RV and I didn't think a full muffin tin would fit in my oven. I was wrong. A full one can, but I'm gonna go ahead and use this because it's what I have out right now. I think my full-size one is still in a box somewhere. I'm going to line these with the parchment baking cups. I get these from Azure too. And I love these parchment cups. They work so well. So we're gonna fill these cups to a little over 3/4 full. So let's get, I'm just gonna use this guy, roll up my sleeves, and then we'll just start filling these. And I'll try really hard not to make a mess, but that's probably not gonna happen. All right, I didn't make too big of a mess. So I preheated my oven to 425. I'm going to put these in the oven at 425 for 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, I'm going to drop the temp and I'm going to drop it down to 350. And then we're going to bake them at 350 for another 10 to 12 minutes. Now this is all gonna be based on your oven temperature. So just kind of play it by eye, I guess, or toothpick. So I'm gonna throw these in. Actually, I don't think my oven's preheated yet. So once it is, I'm gonna throw them in. 425, 5 minutes, drop down to 350 and bake for another 10 to 12. So yeah, we're filling these. I could probably fill them a little bit more than this. But you can see in the batter, it's a very like aerated, and that's why you don't want to overmix this because you want it to stay aerated. So I'm just gonna let this sit while these bake. I'll pull them out, let them cool, and start another batch. And I'll show you how they look. All right, I ended up borrowing a muffin tin from my mom. Here are the first ones I pulled out, and I stuck the chocolate chips on top, and they melt in there and stay on there pretty well. But so I tried to put it on I've never done this before, but I tried to put it on the mixture before I baked it, and it looks like they sunk down in there, which is okay. But they're still in there. You just can't see them, but look at these beauties. Look how much they puff up and rise. Oh yeah, they're done. They are gorgeous. So we're gonna let these cool for 10 minutes. There are extra chocolate chips in these. They just sunk down, which is probably why some sides are a little wonky. But you let them cool in the muffin tin for about 10 minutes so they can finish cooking, basically. Setting their crumb structure, all that. These I should have taken out already, but look at that. They are gorgeous. Let me just open one up for you guys so you can see. They're super moist and cakey. You can see the chocolate chips in there. Yes, my son will love these. And my husband has a huge sweet tooth, so he's going to love them too. And I'll probably have this for a snack in a little bit. So those are the muffins. What you can do with these is, let me set this back. So what you can do with these is you can let them cool completely after you take them out of the pan. And then you can put them in a Ziploc bag and store them in the refrigerator for the week. Or you can throw them into the freezer and then pull a few out as needed. So as you can see, this ended up making 12, 13, 14, 15 muffins, which is great. And I think that's because I didn't quite fill them up as much as I normally do, because I normally don't get this many. And you can tell like some of these back here didn't puff up as much, and I think it's because I didn't fill them. So technically I think you're supposed to fill them all the way up to the top. So just so you know, and they come out and then they crack open and get this beautiful like dome on them, which is great. And my son will love these, my husband will love these, and I'll probably snack on one here and there. So now that we've done 2 sweet breakfasts, we're going to do a savory breakfast. And this is like kind of more for me, and it is one of my favorite breakfasts to make. I don't know why, what it is about it, and it's super versatile and you can change it up in so many ways, but this combination is my favorite. So let's start on the next. Okay, before we move on to the next dish, I wanted to show you the baked oatmeal. This is not baked yet. This is just it setting and kind of soaking up some of that stuff. So we are going to throw this in a 350-degree oven, and we're going to bake this probably for about 30 minutes. You want to watch for the edges to kind of just start to brown. When the edges just start to brown, it is ready to pull out. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in, and I will show you what it looks like when it's done. Next, I'm going to be doing a little bit of prep for dinner and our next breakfast meal. So I just wanted to show you guys this. This is a cheese grater, and it actually, let me show you if I can. It actually comes with like several different types of grater pieces. So this is the cheese grater. It has, you can do like waffle fries, you can do like vegetable noodles, stuff like that, and it suction cups down to your counter. And this thing is amazing. This thing is my best friend. I love buying cheese in like the blocks. I think it tastes so much better. You get a better quality, and I buy raw cheese from Azure, and most of that is in the blocks. And I grate cheese all the time, but I hate using a box grater. I hate it, hate it, hate it. And this thing is my best friend when it comes to grating cheese and a bunch of other things. But let's go ahead and grate up our cheeses. So this is like an extra sharp cheddar. This one's actually not from Azure. This one is from Cabot, I think, and it's called like seriously sharp cheddar or something like that. So we're gonna grate that up first into our bowl. Gotta move that. All right, and then the next one we're gonna grate up. This is actually the raw Monterey Jack from Azure. I've even put like vegetables in here, like carrots, just to like cut them up a little bit. It's just so easy. Potatoes in here for hash browns, and then it has like a mandolin type setting that you could use for potatoes. I just love it. But look at all that cheese I grated just in that amount of time. So we got this prepped, and we're gonna move on to the next. I started cracking eggs without even thinking about it. But I'm cracking 8 eggs in here in a bowl. And we are going to be making my favorite quiche of all time. I might have got a shell in there. Yep. All right, it was a big piece, so it was easy to get out. So what we're gonna add to this is salt, pepper, and we're also gonna add a couple splashes, maybe about a 1/4 cup of heavy cream. I have my salt, just kind of doing salt to your preference. Eggs really take on the flavor of salt, so be careful not to use too much. We're gonna do some pepper, freshly ground pepper. Instead of dicing up an onion and putting it in there, we're gonna use some minced onion, which minced onion is actually, I prefer it over fresh onion and stuff like this. So maybe a teaspoon or so of minced onion for flavor. But by all means, if you would prefer fresh onion, go ahead and put that in there. We're gonna do some garlic powder. And I just reuse this container and refill it. We're gonna do a pinch of cayenne. And then we're gonna mix this up and then add our add-ins. And this is my favorite variation of quiche. And it is a broccoli cheese quiche. And it is so incredibly good. I'm probably shaking the counter, so bear with me. And you want to get this mixed super well. And I could not find my pie pan to save my life. So I am improvising. And I'm going to use my, I think it's my 10-inch cast iron. So I do have a pre-made crust. And I typically like to make my own crust and set them back. But my mom gave me a box of pie crust left over from Thanksgiving. So I'm just going to use that. Typically, if you're going to use like a pre-done pie crust, you want it to come a little bit to room temperature. Which I guess I can let this come to room temperature a hair, and we can just prep our mix-ins and stuff. Yeah, let's do that. So I'm gonna let this come to room temp, and we're gonna chop up our stuff. So I bought this bag of broccoli at Sam's, and I just need to use it up. I actually bought a couple of these, and probably shouldn't have bought so many at a time, but this needs to get used. But broccoli cheese to me is just so good. I'm actually gonna trim the stems off because I can give these to my hogs, and so we get more of the, I'll show you why. But I like chopping these off because the florets very easily pull apart like this, and the little mini trees, as my son likes to say. And then they're just easy just to add right in. Really make them as big as you want. Some people steam their broccoli before adding it to a quiche, but I like my broccoli to at least have a little bit of texture instead of just going to straight mush. So that's why I just like to add it in like that. And these stems won't go to waste. They're gonna feed my pigs, which makes me bacon. And the pigs actually go to butcher next week. So I'll be able to show you what all I got from that. I probably have 1.5 to 2 cups of broccoli in here. That ratio looks pretty good to me. I just love broccoli so much. And then I'm mainly gonna use my sharp cheddar in here. I will add a little bit of Monterey Jack, but I'm gonna say that's about a cup there, and then maybe another 1/2 cup, so about cup and a half of let's go a little bit more. You can't ever have enough cheese. About a 1.5 cups of cheese. And then I'll use some more of this for dinner. And whisk it. I'm just using it so I don't have to dirty another mixing spoon, but we're just going to kind of mix that all together. You can also add ham to this, so like a broccoli, cheese, and ham, or bacon, or sausage. Breakfast sausage would be really good in here. Really, the variations you can do with quiche are endless. This just happens to be my favorite. I'm not gonna pre-bake my crust, or, oh, it's ripping. That's probably because I didn't let it come to room temp. So let your pie crust come to room temp first. We're gonna make this work though. We are gonna make it work. It'll still taste the same. It just might not be as pretty. It's still going to be delicious. Now, the only difference, since I'm using my cast iron pan, this is probably going to take a little bit longer because cast iron takes a little longer to heat up. So if you do end up using your cast iron, just keep that in mind. All right, and then we're just going to pour this mixture in. Ooh, I could have added more eggs. I might actually. I can never remember if it's 8 or 10 eggs. Yeah, let's add a couple more eggs. Well, then it's gonna go over on here because I didn't put it in there even. No, but this still looks good. Everything is still in there, but you can use 8 to 10 eggs. I guess it really depends on your egg size too. We get so many different size variations with our chickens, but I think this is gonna work just fine for our quiche. It's obviously not going to be the prettiest quiche. Well, it's definitely not going to be as beautiful because I typically top this with some smoked paprika. But that's okay. Things get moved around in here and they just kind of go wherever. I want to pull out this baked oatmeal because it is ready to be pulled out. So we can stick our quiche in. Look at that. Oh yeah. See how the edges got a little bit, let me close this oven. See how the edges got a little bit brown. I don't typically cut into this right away, but I just, since it's in a circular, I'm gonna cut it like a pie instead of the squares. But look at that. So what I do is I take this, and if it's the next day, I warm it up. It smells so good. I warm it up and I top it with a little bit of maple syrup, or some heavy cream or some milk, a pat of butter, and this is so good. So good. We want our oven at 375. So let's go ahead and stick this in. I wanted to give you a better view of that baked oatmeal. The smell of this is, oh, so good. But look at that, look how beautiful it is. You could even add raisins or chocolate chips to this, but I really just I like to keep it classic, maple and brown sugar for this particular baked oatmeal recipe. But this is a good one. So I'll probably cut this, ooh, it's still hot. I'll probably cut this into about 8 pieces for breakfast servings. Top it with maple syrup or butter or some milk or heavy cream, and you have breakfast. Right, look at this beauty. Oh my gosh. Look at it. Look at it. Oh, and some of the broccoli on the top got a little roasty, which roasted broccoli is like divine. But it's nice and cheesy. Oh yeah, that's done. Oh, that looks so good. Just slightly browned on the top. I am not gonna cut this until it cools just a little bit before I package it up. But I did package my oatmeal and the muffins up, and this video is getting a little bit long. So I'm gonna show you dinner next time. But let me gather everything together so you can see everything we've made all together. All right, so we've packaged up our muffins, and I'm probably gonna split this in half, put half of these in the freezer, half of them in the fridge, because we're about done with Christmas break and school starts, and my son will love those. And then I have 2 containers of the baked oatmeal, and I'm telling you, if you think you don't like baked oatmeal, try this recipe because it is so good. It is not too sweet. It's buttery, it's mapley, and I don't put much maple syrup on this, just a teeny drizzle after I warm it up. So good. Look at these. So delicious. And then our beautiful, which I just pulled out of the oven, broccoli cheese quiche. So good. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. If you do me a huge favor and comment down below, what is your favorite make ahead breakfast? Because I love getting new ideas. I do have several more recipes in my arsenal that are tried and true, and I also have a lot that I want to try. But give me some ideas down below because I would love to try your recipes as well. And I hope you enjoy these. If you do, please let me know down below. I will link everything recipe-wise down below. And I can't wait to see you next time. Bye, guys.